Lincoln believed that the founding fathers had meant for slavery to end, but that they didn't believe that they could just end it overnight, that it was like a cancer, so widespread, you might not be able to cut it out without damaging the patient, but you can find ways to contain it. But by this time, he's not asking for the consent of the people. He's not asking for colonization. He's not asking for anything gradual.
Lincoln knew that saying, now the war is over, you guys go back and be slaves, was a non-starter. That the Emancipation Proclamation was a fit and necessary war measure, but when the war was over, it was no longer a legal measure.
And this is why you need the 13th Amendment. You have to change the Constitution.
You've got almost 4 million people who are enslaved, and there was nothing to prevent Southerners from reestablishing slavery in the South unless this 13th Amendment was issued. He realized that something had to be done that was permanent. And so he is determined that this amendment is going to pass Congress, and it does.
He came to recognize the inconsistency that a nation conceived in liberty would have slavery.
To the extent that America has any kind of standing in the world now is in part the consequence of people knowing about Lincoln and his views on slavery and his views on freedom. He has evolved in his thinking, and it's the war that has done it.
By the time the 13th Amendment came along, the war was dragging on and on. More Americans died in that war than in any other, both sides. And a lot had happened to him and to the whole country by that time.
He's seen the death. He's experienced extreme personal loss. Early in the war, with the death of Willie, all of this has moved him. And he's carried the weight of a nation on him.
All these people wiped out by the war. He must write letters consoling those who had lost members of families, fathers, brothers. And all of this grinds him down. You see it in his face. The hollows of his cheeks sink more deeply in. He said at one point that there was a tired spot in him that no amount of rest could touch.
Those photographs are haunting. Etched on his face is a testimony, a record of the stress that he endured. Every president ages during their presidency, but nothing like Lincoln 3 or 4 years after he assumes office. It gives you a sense of the burden that he was carrying.
How can any human being accept the casualties that were piling up and take personal responsibility without resigning or killing yourself over this tragedy unless you could find a higher power that was instrumental in causing the war to go on for so long? And Lincoln writes a memo to himself that has become known as a meditation on the divine will. If God wills that this contest continue, it will continue. It must be divine providence forcing us to have this bitter confrontation over the future of our country. But Lincoln never joined a church. He was not a believer in organized religion.
As he prepared for the second inaugural address, he wanted to make clear to everybody that he, Lincoln, understood that the war had been a war to free the slaves and not just a war to save the Union. And he wanted to make sure that everybody understood that slavery was done forever in the country.
Fellow countrymen, 4 years ago, all thoughts were anxiously directed to an impending civil war. All dreaded it. All sought to avert it. Neither party expected for the war the magnitude or the duration which it has already attained. Both read the same Bible and pray to the same God, and each invokes his aid against the other.
And Douglass was there in the front row listening to Lincoln's inaugural address. There's a great photograph that shows Lincoln at the lectern, Douglass with his big hair, that's how you can recognize him, and in the balcony is John Wilkes Booth.
Yet if God wills that it continue, until all the wealth piled by the bondsman's 250 years of unrequited toil shall be sunk, and until every drop of blood drawn with the lash shall be paid by another drawn with the sword.
What you see in the second inaugural is not a certainty of victory, but a certainty of the rightness of the struggle. An almost biblical, righteous, prophetic vision of why this struggle was necessary.
As was said 3,000 years ago, so still it must be said. The judgments of the Lord are true and righteous altogether.
His consciousness of something bigger than himself and the need to recognize that a form of pain had existed in America for generations before he came along and it would not instantly be solved.
It's a statement of the need to rewire the country, to change its moral axis. He's now telling a new story about what America should be. Who are we? What do we believe in?
With malice toward none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right, as God gives us to see the right. Let us strive on to finish the work we are in, to bind up the nation's wounds, to care for him who shall have borne the battle, and for his widow and his orphan, to do all which may achieve and cherish a just and lasting peace among ourselves and with all nations.